Good evening. You're watching the main news on ATV. I'm Anne Sim.
And I'm Yondan Latu. Here's a look at tonight's headlines.
Blind dissident lawyer escapes house arrest in China and appeals for Premier Wen Jiabao's help.
New chief executive's top aide urges lawmakers' support for government revamp plans by mid-June.
US agrees to move thousands of soldiers in Okinawa out of Japan, but base will remain. One of China's most prominent rights activists, Chen Guangcheng, has escaped from house arrest and released a video demanding protection for his family.
In the video, the dissident known as the blind lawyer urges Premier Wen Jiabao to investigate corruption and beatings that he and his family members suffered.
5 days after giving police guarding his home the slip, a video statement by activist Chen Guangcheng was posted on a Chinese dissident website based in the US. It's not known where the video was taped, but its message was directed at Premier Wen Jiabao. Chen makes 3 demands and tells Wen to follow them up himself. The dissident known as the blind lawyer urges the premier to prosecute officials who assaulted him and his family. He says guards beat up his elderly mother this year and his wife's bones have yet to heal after she was attacked. Chen also demands guarantees for the safety of his family, whom he left behind in the village of Linyi in Shandong province. His third demand is that Beijing take concrete steps to eradicate corruption. It was not at all easy, but I have escaped, Chen says in the video, without revealing how he managed to evade the tight security around his home. Everything that was said on the internet about the violence directed against me by Lin Yi, I'm here to say that it was all true. He goes on, I want Premier Wen to open a probe into this corrupt behavior. The money paid by the people in taxes should not be wasted by corrupt local officials to hurt us. A fellow activist says Chen is safe in Beijing, but his exact whereabouts are unknown. This has given rise to speculation that he has taken refuge in a Western embassy. The US embassy said it had no immediate comment. Foreign Ministry spokesman Liu Weimin said he has read media reports about Chen's escape, but didn't have any information at the moment. Chen's home is heavily surrounded by police, shocked by his escape. One report says his brother and nephew have been detained. Chen was put under house arrest in 2010 after serving a 4-year jail term. According to the court, he was convicted of blocking traffic. Chen lost his sight when he was a child, but taught himself the law so that he could represent people oppressed by the authorities. He made his name campaigning against forced abortions and also fought for farmers whose lands were seized. In 2005, he angered officials in Shandong by accusing them of forcing thousands of women to have abortions. After serving a 4-year jail term, he was confined to his home. Chen's campaigns have made him well known in the West, and there have been frequent calls from world leaders that he be freed from house arrest. His disappearance puts the plight of mainland dissidents under the spotlight once again.
Chief Executive-elect Len Chanying's top advisor has warned of problems for the incoming administration if lawmakers don't approve plans to revamp the government.
Fanny Law stressed that if new ministers are not sworn in on the 1st of July, it would seriously affect governance. Fanny Law, the key strategist behind Leung Chun-ying's successful campaign to be the next chief executive, has been busy lobbying major political parties over the past few days to support the government restructuring. Today, after meeting some legislators to ask for their support, Law warned that if they did not approve the plan by mid-June, it would seriously affect governance.
Until this point, we have agreed on the broad structure of the new government. And the details are still being worked out by the present administration regarding financial implications, etc. But you are probably already aware that over the last 2 days, I have been in touch with LegCo members to absorb their views as far as possible, so that we hopefully will have a smooth sailing through LegCo.
In his manifesto, Leung proposed adding 2 more deputy policy secretaries and 2 extra bureau heads to the current government framework. The chief executive-elect also wants to split the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau into a Technology Bureau and a Commerce and Industry Bureau. Another option was to set up a housing bureau with the Planning and Lands and Works and Transport departments grouped together under another bureau. Law expressed hope that the new team would be in place before ministers are sworn in on the 1st of July, but she remained tight-lipped on who they would be.
No names will be announced before the structure is completed.
But Law is having a hard time convincing some legislators. Liberal Party head Miriam Lau acknowledged that the new chief executive needs a cabinet behind him when he takes office and agreed with Law that the running of the government could be affected if the ministers weren't sworn in this July. Civic Party leader Alan Leung questioned how LegCo is able to deal with financing for the new government ministers at the same time as handling transition arrangements. But the head of the pro-government DAB, Tam Yu Chung, said he was confident the restructuring would be completed in time, just as it was back in 2007. According to some media reports, Leung has made progress in forming his cabinet and might announce the names of his top officials in 2 weeks' time. Only 600 new private residential flats have been completed in Hong Kong so far this year, the lowest rate in 4 years.
But the number of flats being built in the first quarter jumped to its highest level in 18 months. Arthur Killer reports.
Government statistics released today show that 600 private residential units were completed in the first quarter of this year. That's 82% down from the 3,300 flats finished in the same period last year and the lowest level in 4 years. But more flats are on the way. Construction of 4,900 units has commenced so far, up 75% from 1 year ago, when the figure was 2,800. The number of new flats unsold, including those still under construction, stands at around 49,000, comparable to recent quarters. Surveyors say government land sold recently has mainly been for small to medium-sized projects, indicating a growing number of smaller, cheaper private residential flats. Chung Wang-yip pointed out that prices for flats are lower in areas like the New Territories, while those in urban areas are usually smaller-sized units. Arthur Akilla, ATV News.
Education Secretary Michael Sun has been discharged from hospital following surgery to remove a thyroid tumour.
It was the latest health problem to plague Sun, but he's insisting he'll be fit for work on Monday. ATV's Bo Leung reports.
Secretary for Education Michael Sun had a final check-up today before he was cleared for discharge from Queen Mary Hospital. He was admitted on Tuesday to undergo surgery to remove a thyroid tumour. Soon we'll know in a week whether the tumour was benign or malignant. It's the third time in 4 weeks that the 68-year-old Education Minister has been admitted to hospital. Sun acknowledged that he has been unfortunate to encounter one health problem after another, but said this time he was admitted only for a minor operation. Although he plans to report for duty on Monday, Sun says he'll do less overtime work. He expressed confidence that he will have the energy to handle his duties. Despite concerns about whether he's fit to carry on, Sun again ruled out seeking early retirement and insisted that he'll remain in the job until his term of office expires on the 30th of June. Last month, he was hospitalised after breaking an arm when he fell at home. Earlier this month, he had a hernia operation. And in December, Sun spent 12 days in hospital after coming down with Legionnaire's disease. The bacteria was traced to a toilet in his private office, leading to a thorough check-up of the government's new headquarters at Tamar. Health officials found the bacteria in the offices of several other policy secretaries, resulting in a thorough disinfection of the entire complex. Sun also suffers from kidney problems. Bo Leung, ATV News.
The US and Japan have finally come to an agreement about what to do with the deeply unpopular American Army base on Okinawa Island.
After years of wrangling and protests by locals, the base will stay exactly where it is, but 9,000 troops will be shipped elsewhere, including Australia. ATV's Ben O'Rourke reports.
Throughout decades of Cold War, the US built up a presence in Asia to counter the perceived threat of communism spreading from China and Russia. The Cold War may be over and the circumstances changed, but as far as the US is concerned, the threat from China remains, which is why it continues to boost forces in the region and is reluctant to shut down its long-established base on Japan's Okinawa Island. That's despite years of protests by locals fed up with the noisy and dangerous base and troublemaking US troops. Today, Tokyo announced that the best the government has managed to do to get US soldiers off its soil is convince Washington to reduce troop numbers. In a new agreement, 9,000 soldiers will leave the base and be sent elsewhere in the region. That still leaves around 38,000 US troops in Japan. Japanese officials welcomed the agreement. Defense Minister Naoki Tanaka said the deal is good, as the US will still have a strong deterrent force while reducing the burden on the long-suffering people of Okinawa. Foreign Minister Koichiro Gemba described the agreement as positive and part of a strategy to deal with constantly changing peace and security. However, Okinawa residents are divided over the new deal, which ignores a previous failed agreement to move the base. Many complain that living on the island is like being in prison due to all the security, and they're fearful of violent incidents involving US troops. The most high-profile case was the 1995 gang rape of a schoolgirl by US soldiers. Residents also complain that developments that have sprung up because of the base are destroying the environment. At the same time, other residents are pleased by the positive effect the base has had on the local economy, and some believe its presence is essential to keep nuclear-armed China and North Korea at bay. According to Washington, the US is a critical guarantor of stability in the region, so it's unlikely to want to shut down any of its bases. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta says the US will now work with the Japanese to make sure the move is smooth. However, there's no date set for when it will happen. It's believed most of the 9,000 troops withdrawn from Okinawa will head to Hawaii and Guam. The rest will go to Australia, where US troops began deploying earlier this month, adding to Washington's presence in the region. Beijing described the move to station American troops in Australia as aggressive. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
After the break on ATV's main news tonight. Strong winds pose challenge to pilots landing in Spanish city of Bilbao.
Barcelona's most successful coach, Pep Guardiola, to quit at end of season.
Silence will take over before the storm arrives.
Something has awoken up, and I fear for each and every one of us.
No peace can be achieved without war.
We have to destroy the source of the magic.
One hero shall take the fall. The Adventures of Merlin, tonight at 10.
Is it possible they were killed by the same murderer? Hunter Hunted, Monday night at 9.
Share the true meaning of life with the world-renowned religious mentor. In touch with Dr. Charles Stanley, Sunday at 2 p.m.
The Hong Kong Export Credit Insurance Corporation has launched enhanced measures to help exporters. These include waiving policy fees for 1 year and offering free credit checks on 3 buyers. Credit limit applications for up to $1 million will now be processed in 3 days, and sales by majority-owned overseas subsidiaries of Hong Kong companies are now covered. SMEs can also obtain special policy terms. For inquiries, please call 2732-9988.
There's no need to panic. They come in peace. Mutual attraction, obsession. Are they celebrating too soon? Mega Hit 900, V, Season 1. Tuesday night at 9.
A tragedy that killed 271 people on one flight, the second biggest air disaster in the history of America. It has changed the airline industry forever. Seconds from disaster, Chicago air crash, Saturday night at 10.
Quicksure, all your insurance needs. Call 3113-2112 or visit the site today.
Only Caltex contains Techron that cleans your engine as you drive.
More than 1,000 officers from 30 government departments have been testing their skills at dealing with a possible radiation leak from the Daya Bay nuclear plant.
The 2-day drill ended today with tests on food imports from the mainland. There was an unusual sight at the Mankamto Food Control Office on the border this morning as a truck full of fresh vegetables pulled up. A handful of government workers dressed head to toe in protective clothing were ready to scan the vegetable delivery for radiation. It's all part of a drill designed to test whether the city is ready to deal with any crisis at the Diabei nuclear station, just across the border. If any of the produce breaches contamination safety levels, staff will test it again after 30 minutes. If the delivery fails a second test, the driver will be given two choices: return the produce to the mainland or give it up for local authorities to destroy. Food safety officials assured the public that food imports from the mainland face several stringent tests before being allowed into Hong Kong, so the likelihood of radiation-contaminated food was low. If there is a nuclear leak at the Diabei plant, which is in neighbouring Guangdong, 100 trucks from farms within a 50-kilometre radius of the plant will have their deliveries tested. Currently, only 8 out of the 400 or so vegetable delivery trucks that enter the Mankamto border point daily are tested for radiation. About 80 have their stock tested for pesticides. Hong Kong's first nuclear drill in 15 years involved more than 1,000 staff from 30 government departments and was observed by experts from France, Britain and the International Atomic Energy Agency. A former welfare official has urged the government to use its huge surplus to improve welfare services for the elderly.
He also called for measures to be taken to narrow the widening wealth gap. Arthur Killer reports.
Former Deputy Health and Welfare Secretary Lawrence Ho was among those who helped incoming Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying draw up his election platform. On a radio show today, Ho said the wealth gap is a pressing issue that needs to be tackled with sound policies. Leung intends to raise the monthly old age allowance, also known as fruit money, from $1,000 to $2,200. But Ho says for this to happen, the chief executive-elect will have to coordinate with the current administration. Ho hopes the proposal can pass through Electrico smoothly, as it was made with the best intentions. During the election campaign, Leung's rival Henry Tang proposed raising the fruit money to $3,000, but Ho said increasing it above $2,200 would affect other welfare schemes. However, the former official pointed out that the government is sitting on a surplus of more than $80 billion from the last fiscal year, and argued that this huge sum of money should be used to improve services, instead of offering one-off measures and handouts. Ho said the money could be used to improve services at homes for the elderly, and to build more housing to shorten the waiting period for those needing accommodation. But he added that a smooth transition to the new administration is vital for Leung's policies to be implemented. Arthur Ricchiola, ATV News.
The U.S. is urging China to speed up reforms of its state-dominated banking system.
In return, Washington could give Beijing more access to U.S. technology. ATV's Corinna Wu reports.
Trade frictions have marred relations between the world's two biggest economies. Now the U.S. is dangling economic carrots in a bid to prod China to speed up reforms. These include allowing the yuan to rise more quickly and restructuring the state-dominated banking system, two issues which are seen as giving Beijing an unfair trade advantage. U.S. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner says major mainland banks prefer to lend to state-owned companies, leaving private firms desperately searching for funds. He also called for the yuan to rise faster and fair treatment for U.S. firms doing business in China. In return, Beijing could get more access to U.S. technology and American markets. In a speech in San Francisco, the Treasury chief said China also has other problems it has to resolve.
They have a labor force that's going to stop growing relatively soon, terrible demographics, rising costs for labor, but across the economy as the exchange rate appreciates, and they're still living with an economic structure dominated by the state and a completely state-run financial system. Those are not viable things for a country that hopes to grow sustainably over time.
The remarks came ahead of the next round of the strategic and economic dialogue between the two countries. Geithner and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will travel to Beijing next week for the talks which are aimed at fostering cooperation in trade and foreign affairs. Apart from economic issues, the two countries are also expected to discuss North Korea's nuclear program and rising tensions caused by territorial disputes in the South China Sea. This round of talks is regarded as extra special because they take place ahead of the U.S. presidential election in November and the once-a-decade leadership transition in China. Corinna Wu, ATV News.
A group of mainland animal lovers has rescued hundreds of dogs that were destined for the dinner table.
But first, in our news roundup, the family of an Australian girl poisoned by a KFC chicken meal has won millions of dollars in compensation. Ben O'Rourke reports.
Fast food giant KFC has been ordered to pay $8.3 million in damages to the family of an Australian girl who was left severely brain damaged and in a wheelchair after being poisoned by a chicken meal. In 2005, Monica Saman, her parents and her brother were hospitalised with salmonella after eating a Twister chicken wrap at a KFC outlet near Sydney. Last week, a New South Wales Supreme Court judge ruled in favour of the family, saying KFC had breached its duty of care to the girl, who was 7 at the time. KFC says it's deeply disappointed and surprised by the decision and plans to appeal. A lorry carrying around 500 dogs in cages to a slaughterhouse in southwest China was stopped by animal lovers at a toll booth in Yunnan. The rescue effort began on the 19th of April after an internet post calling on people to stop a lorry carrying dogs across the country went viral. The police later took the driver and his vehicle to the local station after the rescuers said the dogs were to be traded as meat on the black market and would end up on plates. Some were sick or injured and more than 20 had already died. Police found the driver's papers were all in order, so they had to let him go. But a local businessman bought all the dogs for 60,000 yuan, and the volunteers managed to raise another 50,000 to feed and shelter the animals until they get adopted. Extremely high winds in northern Spain tested pilots landing at Bilbao's airport. Several planes were seen struggling to stay level moments before touching down. Some pilots were forced to abort in the last seconds. Winds of over 65 kilometres per hour were recorded at the airport, according to authorities. Airport officials said the high winds resulted in 4 flights being diverted to different airports. Bilbao's airport stayed open despite the bad weather. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Britton Clennett.
So there's plenty happening in football.
Yes, there's all sorts of off-pitch drama unfolding. English Premiership sides Chelsea and QPR will not be shaking hands before their match on Sunday, while Barcelona coach Pep Guardiola is hanging up his boots at the end of the season. Since becoming Barcelona boss 4 years ago, Pep Guardiola has won 13 titles for the Spanish Giants, including 2 in the Champions League and 3 in La Liga. But the 41-year-old has told the club that he's ready to call it a day, saying he cannot continue as coach any longer. Barcelona president Sandro Rosell has tried to convince him to stay, reportedly even offering him unlimited spending power during the summer. But it appears that Guardiola has set his mind on a year-long break from football, although he's been linked to English Premiership side Chelsea. Ironically, it was Chelsea who earlier this week ended Barcelona's bid to retain their Champions League crown. Barcelona are also likely to lose their La Liga title to arch-rivals Real Madrid this season. The setbacks have dented his reputation as Barcelona's most successful coach, prompting Guardiola to hang up his boots after a glittering career in which he also starred as a player for Barca and Spain. Also departing as coach is former French international Jean Tigana, who has been sacked by Shanghai Shenhua. The Chinese Super League club are unhappy with a string of losses and Tigana's training methods. Former French striker Nicolas Anelka will continue as player-coach for Shenhua, who are currently 10th on the table. There'll be no pre-match handshakes when Chelsea and QPR meet in a crucial premiership match on Sunday. That's because deep-seated tensions remain after Chelsea skipper John Terry was accused of racially abusing QPR defender Anton Ferdinand. Terry has been charged and will appear in court in July. He has also been stripped of the England captaincy. Chelsea need to win Sunday's match to play in next year's Champions League, while QPR are desperate for 3 points to ease relegation fears. In tennis, Spaniard Rafael Nadal and Scott Andy Murray made it look easy as they cruised to the quarter-finals of the Barcelona Open. World number 2 Rafael Nadal and Colombian Robert Ferrer were in different leagues during their third round at the Barcelona Open. Having just won his 8th successive Monte Carlo Masters crown, Nadal was brimming with confidence as he easily took the first set. The Spaniard also won the second set for a 6-2, 6-3 victory to reach the quarterfinals, where he'll meet Serb Janko Tipsarevic. It was also a one-sided affair in the match between world number 4 Andy Murray and Colombia's Santiago Giraldo. Murray ran rings around his lower-ranked opponent to win the opening set 6-1. The Scot claimed the second 6-2 and will go on to play Milos Raonic of Canada in the quarterfinals.
And that's our main news for Friday night. I'll be back with the headlines in 1 hour. I'm Yondan Latu.
I'm Britain Clennett.
And I'm Anne-Marie Sim. The weather report is next. Thanks for watching ATV. Have a great weekend.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
They live with human beings side by side. They are true events that are happening every day. Are you sure you're ready to venture into this whole new world? Raw Nature, tonight at 9.
On special, buying in bulk is a really smart thing to do.
Get the latest tips from the writers of the best-selling cookbooks. Simple is simply beautiful and reasonable. 4 ingredients, every Saturday night at 8:30.
Every day we learn. From him, from her, from someone we barely know. But what does it mean to you and me? Find out the answers on Global 3000, Thursday night at 8.
Death means more than the end of a journey. Dancing expresses the joy of life. As long as they are happy, they always have something to celebrate. Culture X, Tuesday night at 10. They can drive you nuts. From the most powerful roaring on Earth to the sexiest bodies you will ever see. They're surely every man's dream. Drive It, every Monday evening at 6:55.
We are what we eat. Every decision makes us who we are. Whatever they did is going to come back someday. CSI New York, Sunday night at 9:05.
Welcome back. It was cloudy with mist today. Temperatures ranged between 21.8 and 23.6 degrees, and the relative humidity varied from 86 to 98%. Winds were moderate, coming in from the east. Checking on the ultraviolet reading, the maximum recorded for the day was 4. And tomorrow's UV levels will also be about 4. Here's a look at the weather around the region. An area of low pressure is bringing rain and thunderstorms to the coastal areas of Guangdong. And moving on to the satellite images. We can see cloud bands covering southern China. And here's what we can expect over the next few days. Cloudy with rain and thunderstorms tomorrow. Temperatures will range from 22 to 26 degrees. More of the same on Sunday, with the mercury hitting a high of 28 degrees. Scattered showers and sunny periods for the rest of next week, reaching a top temperature of 30 degrees. Let's see how polluted it will be tomorrow. General stations will be medium at 30 to 50, and roadside pollution levels will be medium to high at 50 to 85. Finally, here's a look at the weather around the world.
Thanks for joining us for the weather, and have a great weekend.
Coming up, people and politics. Taste versus health. In this battle, nobody will go down without a fight.
Surprisingly, I would rather cook this way for my health and for my friends' health.
Healthy Gourmet. Tonight at 8:30. Life is only worth living with good food. This May, brand new programs are waiting for you. Enjoy the freshly arrived entertainment. More to be discovered. Expect to be amazed. World Channel. Everything is connected. It's all over? Think again. Here comes the next gourmet challenge. The Sandwich of Fame. Man versus food. Monday night at 8:30.
Surrounded by the fear of the unknown.
I wonder where we're going to land.
Would Leah lose herself in the place of unlimited possibilities? Young Explorers, Thursday night at 8:30. Current events.